Wow, did they just call off World War III here? We're entering a completely new world order now. Iran attacks the US here and the markets go up, including Bitcoin, which makes absolutely no sense. Normally, the markets should be going down. What just happened here again? Donald Trump says he can hardly believe it. Something unbelievable has just happened here. He also issues a warning, saying that oil prices need to go down. And here we actually have the billionaire and CEO of Pantera, who now says that the conflict between the US and Iran will accelerate the separation of money and state. That's the really big vision behind Bitcoin. And through this dispute, through this conflict, we could see a decoupling, a boost for Bitcoin. I've been saying it all along. When two people fight, the third one benefits. Of course, we also have new Bitcoin purchases. The treasury companies are on fire again too. But first, let's smash that like button down below so Bitcoin can break through here. So we can see the big decoupling. The hypergalactic Valhalla candle appears, and Bitcoin brings peace to the world. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button down below for me too. And now, let's first dive into the whole USA-Iran topic. So, we've had all these international conflicts, and then we saw the next level of escalation. The US attacks Iran, targeting the nuclear bases here. There were even rumors like, okay, do they want to destroy the Bitcoin mining farms in Iran here? That probably wasn't the case, but of course it's an interesting theory. I made a video about it yesterday. Feel free to check it out. And now there have been counterattacks. Iran is attacking the US. But watch out. They're attacking the US. But before that, they issue a warning saying that in a few hours or later on, they're going to attack the US. And that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're attacking an enemy target, you don't say beforehand, hey, sorry bro, just giving you a heads up, I'm about to attack you. So go ahead and get your defense machinery up and running. And that's why we're now entering a new world order. And now we're actually seeing that. Because of an attack here, the markets aren't falling, they're rising. The US oil price dropped by 6% because of an attack. Normally, it should have gone up, because during geopolitical unrest, oil usually rises, not falls. That means next up, Bitcoin and the markets are on the rise. And only then can we expect a quick de-escalation. A lot of smart people have bet that this doesn't mean anything. So, that's what's important here. Follow the money. What is the money doing? The money here isn't pricing in an escalation, but rather a de-escalation. Here, Fred Krueger also says, we're now entering a completely new world order. The S&P 500 rises during geopolitical uncertainty. Party actually summed it up pretty well. He says here, Iran is coordinating the attack on the American airbase in Qatar with Qatari authorities, and announces it in advance to keep the number of casualties as low as possible. The official said that Iran had to strike back at the US symbolically, but at the same time do it in a way that offered all sides a way out. The New York Times reported on it here. In my opinion, it's all just scripted. Don't fall for the panic mongers, Mr. Wine. And that's the crazy thing, how we're sometimes really being led by the nose here. Here, taxes and money are used to stage some kind of show fights back and forth. We've seen that happen quite a few times before. In the past, there have actually been these show fights put on, where it's not really about attacking any truly important people, but just about acting like a big shot and playing some games here. Max Kaiser also says here, hey, Bitcoin is more risk-off than risk-on. And I see it the same way. But of course, if there were really an active conflict here, if there were truly a looming third world war, then Bitcoin would also go down, even if it's currently showing potential risk-off tendencies. So risk-off means, okay, we have a conflict and instead of falling during a conflict, we actually rise. That's where Bitcoin is headed in the long run. I'm very, very convinced of that. BlackRock says it, Michael Saylor says it, and many other people say it too. And of course, that would be the ultimate catalyst. Bitcoin, I mean. It's holding up incredibly strong here. I've already mentioned this in previous videos. I'm honestly impressed by how Bitcoin is performing here. With this whole situation, we're seeing massive strength in the Bitcoin price. Of course, Bitcoin's characteristics remain unchallenged here as well. The Coinbase dealer also puts it quite aptly for all those calling for World War III. The entire market is turning strongly against them. Here, then there's another look at oil prices, which in some cases haven't even risen, but actually fallen. So ignore the noise, follow the price. And it's really important for you to take away from this that we're actually looking behind the scenes here. Not just what's on the surface, not what's being projected, not what's being spun in the Bratwurstfernseher or whatever, not what the public propaganda media is churning out. No, we're really looking behind the curtain here. What does it really look like? We're telling it like it is here. I mean, just take a look at this chart here. It doesn't make any sense at all. That means, at market opening, oil prices were way up here. And what happened over the course of yesterday? Then there were announcements from Iran that attacks would be coming soon. In the meantime, the price dropped even further. And then, after the attacks happened, the price kept dropping further and further, and even further. So, this was definitely a really, really bad show that took place here. But now you do have the advantage that, for example, Iran throws up some dust, the US throws up some dust. And that way, you can say, okay, we all somehow managed to get out of this pretty well. Then, of course, we had new buyers here again. Here, the blockchain group Alexander Laissez-Poser bought another 75 Bitcoin. I also made a video about this yesterday, explaining that the blockchain group in France is now the new shadow central bank here, from Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is having a massive influence here on the French blockchain group. The CEO basically adopts Michael Saylor's takes one-to-one, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. They're good takes after all, but you can definitely see that there's a lot going on here. Yeah, everything here in France bears Michael Saylor's signature, and we can see it here in a really striking way. Public companies bought 12,400 Bitcoin this week, while only 3,051 were mined, so you get the idea. A supply shock is expected. It's only a matter of time before this whole thing hits the markets as well. And yeah, we'll have to see how things develop from here. But a supply shock is definitely in the making here. Trump also said something interesting here, which I can hardly believe. Specifically, he was responding to statements made by the Russian President Medvedev. The countries are supposedly ready to supply Iran with nuclear weapons. That's what I would have said to her. And then Donald Trump says in response, did he really say that? Or is that just a product of my imagination? So, he just can't believe it. Trump also says that the N-word, meaning nuclear, shouldn't be treated so casually. Then there were more calls and warnings here. To the Department of Energy, drill, baby, drill. I mean now. And Donald Trump said that just before oil prices dropped here. So basically before the attacks happened here. And once again, it's interesting. The Oracle Donald Trump was right again. Every time he said, okay, by now, it turned out to be a good time to buy. When he said, hey, bring oil prices down, drill, baby, drill, then oil prices went down. And I don't know if that's just a coincidence. But in any case, we've seen again that Donald Trump basically called for oil prices to go down. Then there were the fake attacks. And then oil prices dropped. He's just giving a warning here. He says, yeah, okay, inflation is obviously connected to this. We have to make sure we get inflation under control. And it's also really important for Donald Trump that he gets the Fed to lower interest rates. If inflation gets out of hand, Donald Trump will have a really hard time pushing through his agenda. His agenda is definitely to take on new debt at the lowest possible cost. And for that, you need low interest rates. Here he says it again. Keep oil prices down. I'm watching you. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it. So, you're basically playing into the enemy's hands here. We definitely have to keep oil prices down here. And of course, that's relevant for all of us. If oil prices are low, then our groceries are cheaper, services are cheaper, and so on. The higher this goes, the more problems we have, because the more expensive our lives will simply become. Well, affects everything here. But as I said, at first glance this looks like an escalation. And that's just great for Bitcoin. Why is that great? Because we're moving into more of a risk-on sentiment. That means people are willing to take on more risk again. They're investing in riskier assets. And venture capital is flowing back into the market. And that's exactly what we desperately need to pump the Bitcoin price up to Valhalla. But Bitcoin is still seen globally by many as just a risk asset. Many people just slap the risk asset label on Bitcoin. As I said, in my opinion, that's not the case. And according to Michael Saylor and BlackRock, it's not either. But it doesn't matter what we think. What matters is what most of the banana heads think. And most of the banana heads, the ones we're broadcasting to. Bitcoin is still considered a risk-on asset, meaning a risky asset, which actually doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we look at its characteristics, like the 21 million cap, censorship resistance, decentralization, massive security, we've seen it too. The drop in hash rate didn't hurt Bitcoin either, or anything like that. If we look at the characteristics, everything here just speaks for itself. Risk-on asset, but in the long run, it will become something else. I'm very, very sure about that. And this statement will also age very, very well. Here from Pantera, the CEO and billionaire, who is now making bold statements about why Bitcoin will accelerate the separation of state and money. And of course, such a decoupling fits Bitcoin extremely well. And Bitcoin, of course, especially if it separates state and money. At the same time, it ensures that Bitcoin will have long-term risk-off properties and characteristics.
Issues highlight a theme we've been talking about for a decade, the separation of money and state. Back in the day, money was separate from the state. It was hard assets like gold. We've had this era where governments print money. They're printing a lot of it now. And I think we are going back to people trying to store the wealth in hard assets. Gold's great. Gold's doing very well. But digital gold, Bitcoin, is also relevant for people's portfolios. And it can't be undermined by policies, tariffs, wars. You can't print more of it. It has all those attributes that gold has.
And this is now very, very important to understand. Bitcoin's separate state and money here. And that was also the original vision here, from Satoshi Nakamoto. I mean, the white paper wasn't published by accident on October 31st, which is Reformation Day, when a few hundred years earlier Martin Luther nailed his theses to the church door to separate church and state. Now, a few hundred years later, here we are. Satoshi publishes his white paper on the very same day that Martin Luther fired off his theses. Could be a coincidence, but maybe it's not. In my opinion, it fits perfectly with the development of Bitcoin. And he simply says, hey, back in the day it was normal. Money and state were separate. Now, that's just not the case anymore. Now we're also seeing all this fiscal overreach by governments, fiscal policy, things that really shouldn't even be possible, like the state working directly with the Fed, more or less. And not just with the Fed, but in general with the liquidity of money, with interest rates and so on, basically getting into bed with them and constantly trying to influence the Fed, to influence liquidity. And with Donald Trump, we see it all the time, how he's constantly at it. Jerome Powell is being messed with, tinkered with. Trump even wants to remove Jerome Powell so he can have even more power, even more overreach. Then they pull out another bazooka here and another fancy bazooka there. Whatever else they can think of. And that's why he says here, digital gold is relevant for people's portfolios. And that's something I can just pass on to you. Yeah, do your own research. Look behind the scenes. Don't let yourself get fooled by the media, by some sausage news outlets or whatever. If you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link for you down in the comments. Actually, not just in the comments, but also in the description. To 21 Bitcoin, just check it out here, buy Bitcoin. Super easy app. Super easy, simple. Probably the best and easiest way to buy Bitcoin here in Europe. Recommended for beginners, but also for advanced users. Really anyone can use it. Older people, younger people, everyone can manage it. See you until then.